Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you once again. It's Tuesday. It's 9 p.m. Where else you going to be, Steelers fans? You want to group together in joyous occasions? Let's come together in our misery as well. We are here, and with me, as always, to really, talk about how this is going and to feel miserable together is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how you doing tonight? You can't even get anything out. your mouth. I was gonna say you can't even breathe in anything. Yeah. For those of you listening on podcast form, he's acting. You can see Rich struggling to take a breath.
Yes. Just struggling to take a breath. Actually afraid to take a breath, especially through my nose, because that really stunk.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you're in a very small space and someone decided to let one rip, if you know what I mean, and you don't want to breathe in anything. So, yeah, there's an awful lot to talk about. And we're kind of, I'm going to bring up the topic of the show, because it's going to be the theme with everything that we discuss. Even, we'll talk about what Mike Tomlin brought up in his press conference today. If you want a full recap, we've got a podcast available on our podcast platform. Anywhere where you can listen to podcasts, just look for BTSC Steelers Radio or just search for Steelers. You should find us anywhere right there. And there it is. And then you could get a recap there. We'll highlight a couple things, but tonight's show is where do the Steelers go from here? Now, before we say that, we've got to go back and let's rewind the tape. Exactly 2 weeks. What did we talk about 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, we talked about, is it time to get excited for this Steelers team?
Yep.
Then last week, what was it last week? Are the Steelers... They are who we thought they were. They
are who we thought they were.
Okay. Now we're to a point of, I just missed it. What did I say it was? It was, where do the Steelers go from here? So that's the journey of the 2021 regular season so far. That's really what it is. There was lots of reasons to get excited right off the bat. Everything that you were like, oh man, I don't know if the Steelers can put it all together. For 1 week, they did. And then the next week they didn't. And then the next week they didn't even more. Now, there's reasons for this. There's, some of those reasons are injuries. Some of those reasons are just problems that the Steelers have. The question is, and this is why we're going to ask, where do they go from here? Are these problems fixable? So, Rich, I'm not asking you to say this to answer that question now. What I want to say is this. Are we ready to answer as we go? Okay, this is a problem. Is it fixable? That's going to be our theme tonight, to figure out where do you go from here. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, couple news items. The Steelers made a roster move today. This was rumored yesterday. Basically, Sunday ended up being 2 dogs, 1 bone. It was where the Steelers had to elevate a player from the practice squad for the game on Sunday. It was Derek. I don't know if it's Tuska or Tuska. I've been saying Tuska. Who from North Dakota State. He was drafted in the 7th round by the Broncos. Played for the Broncos last year. Played in 9 games. Didn't make the team this year. Didn't sign with their practice squad. Chose to come to Pittsburgh instead. So he was elevated. He actually played more snaps than Jameer Jones. And therefore, it was almost like 2 dogs, 1 bone. They released Jameer Jones today and signed Tuska to the active roster. Now, if Jones clears waivers, I think they'd like to put him on the practice squad, but you run that risk. Any thoughts on that? Anything from Sunday or anything about that position stick out?
That
or
position?
Anything to say?
I mean, snap counts. He played so many more snaps.
Yeah, it was 7 more. It was 27-20.
Yeah. So, yeah.
There was some discussion on our Slack channel, which don't get me started. I'm really mad at Slack right now. my messages weren't coming through. I update the app, and all of a sudden, my normal sound that I get when a message comes through isn't the same sound. Doesn't matter what I do in my settings, it won't change back. My phone thinks it's an alert of a different kind, and it's really annoying. But anyway, some of the discussion going on there was, and I saw it on Twitter and everything else, that Jameer Jones was not someone who could really drop into coverage, and that made Melvin Ingram have to drop into coverage. But with Tuska, he could, and that allowed Ingram to rush the passer more. There was only 18 pass attempts. It's not like they were rushing the passer all the time.
Yeah.
But that was it. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see if they end up with Jones on the practice squad or not. Really makes me frustrated that they weren't able to hold on to Q from the U. That, hindsight, that is what it is. So that was one thing. Then there was some, Tomlin's press conference that happened, the roster move happened after the press conference. Did you listen at all to the press conference on Sunday after the game? Sundays at all?
Yes, I got some of Sundays.
Woo! You could tell he was a camper. I'm sorry. That's a Jim Gaffigan reference, where he says, people say you're not a happy camper. He's like, why don't you just call him a camper? The only happy guy is the guy leaving the campsite. Anyway, so he was not a happy guy on Sunday. Much different demeanor. The whole idea of, hey, they've got another game to prepare for this week. You can't dwell on and be frustrated with everything that happened. So you have to learn from it. You have to move on, or else you're not going to be ready for the next one. So that was kind of the approach. Injuries. Let's recap some injuries. Of the guys that were out, didn't mention Carlos Davis, and no one bothered to ask. Okay. Chooks is in the concussion protocol. That's just going to be what it is. We'll talk about that in a minute. Watt, Deontay Johnson, who's the other one? Alex Highsmith. Mm-hmm. He expects them all to practice this week, but how much they can practice in there and what they can do in practice will kind of be the guide as to whether or not they can go Sunday. He also, expects Kendrick Green to be back at practice. His injury, he felt, was more of a bumps and bruises things. He didn't miss that many snaps. The way I looked at it, I think Hassenauer only played like nine snaps.
Nine snaps
like yeah.
For Hassenauer.
So it wasn't like there was – I have a feeling if it would have been in the first half, he possibly would have even been back in the game. But we'll say. So that was the injuries. Someone asked a question later on about Joe Haig and wanted to know his thoughts on him, and they assumed that Haig would be stepping in for Chooks. Coach Tomlin talked about Haig, but he didn't say, yeah, he would be the guy. He said that he did well stepping in last week, everything else, because Coach Tomlin did bring up, wanted to acknowledge that there are 3 players that's on injured reserve that could begin the process of returning this week. Okay. Should I run over that process real quick?
Yeah, I think you should, because it's not just as easy as you're on IR and then you come off of IR and are back on the 53 ready to roll.
Yeah, they could practice this week. They don't have to go back on the active roster until they would actually be ready to play in a game. So if any or all of those 3 players, it's Stephon Tuitt, Zach Banner, Anthony McFarland. If any of them practice this week, they're already not on the 53. They'd have to make the roster move Saturday in order for them to be back on for Sunday. But once they practice, they get 21 days to either end up back on the active roster or on IR for the rest of the season with no possibility of return. So that's the deal. So if they practice this week, but they're really not ready, and they're not going to be back in the next 3 weeks, then you either got to put them on IR or bring them back before they're ready and have them using a roster spot when they're still not ready. So we'll see. You want to do any bold predictions about that? Do you think anyone practices tomorrow?
The one that is the biggest wild card is Ant-Mac, because I'm not really sure what happened to him that he landed on IR at the beginning.
Jeff asked me that today, and I was looking. I don't think they ever disclosed what his injury was, They said they left him back in Carolina for week 4, but they never said what it was for sure. So there's some speculation, but I don't want to say if I don't really know. With him, you don't know if that's a guy that could be back. For all I know, he had to do one of those like knee scope things, like Benny Snell had that in season 1 year, Jalen Samuels had that in season 1 year, things like that. Or it could just be one of those soft muscle tissue injuries.
I was going to say, Bully Mob Kettle said he had heard somewhere he thought it was a hamstring.
Could very well be a hamstring. Could be a hamstring, something like that. So he's a player that you're right. That's a wild card. We have no clue.
Yeah. Zach Banner, I'd say we're probably in the coin flip area.
Yep. It's a possibility. I mean, he took snaps in the preseason.
Correct. True. It was only 12.
Yes.
12 snaps in the preseason. Has the time off done his and the continued rehab done well for him? If so, you could see him back. If they feel he could use another week or two, they'll leave him there for another week or two.
Yeah.
And
I would say if I was going to bet on anyone to not return, my biggest bet would be on Stephon Tuitt.
Yeah, me too.
Just there's still so much up in the air with not really knowing what's going on with him. It's a knee, and other things.
It's a knee. Is it a knee?
Chris Wormley kind of said in passing that it's not like they were expecting him to be back right away. So yeah, it would be fantastic to get him back. I mean, my goodness, look, if you look at the 5 players that we expected going into training camp to be starting on the defensive front 5, not talking about the linebackers, they had one on Sunday. Cam Hayward's all that's left. So It would really be nice to get as many of them back as possible. So that's tough. But let's go ahead and dive into talking about what we're going to be talking about tonight, or the question that we're going to keep asking is, where do the Steelers go from here? Is this something that can be fixed? So, yeah, I don't know. Did you check out my By the Numbers article? I'll talk about a little bit more on stats.
I did.
But, I mean, if you count the playoff game, you're talking 11 straight games where the offense has not scored in the first quarter.
Yeah. Rough.
Yeah, because even the Baltimore game last year, they scored points. They only got 6. They missed the extra point. And it was a defensive touchdown. It was Joe Hayden. So you have to go all the way back to when the Steelers played the Bengals the first time last year to the offense scoring points, not on the opening drive, in the first quarter. Okay. So that's not, I know there's some people that are like, after 3 games, they want to blame Canada. They're calling for his head and everything else. But you know what? And here's another one. This is classic Steelers fan, or maybe I should say Steelers Twitter, or maybe don't want to say all fans. Classic Steelers Twitter overreaction. Okay. The Steelers start 5 rookies and 5 draft picks and a new punter in week 1. The Steelers upset the Bills, and Kevin Colbert is the biggest genius of a GM that's ever existed in the NFL. 2 weeks later, after losing the next 2 games, Kevin Colbert is the biggest fraud because he didn't prepare this team for the losses and revamp the offensive line and everything else. It just goes to show how outcome driven every narrative really is.
Right. When do people talk their narrative? When the product fits it.
Yeah. Oh, wow, they started all these new players in week 1. They were able to beat the Bills. Wow, these were all great picks. But you know what? It was the same players in week 2, and it was the same players in week 3. So was it true then? Is it true now? Is it there? Dennis throws $5 into the tip jar. Thank you, Dennis. He says the question now is, it's still dilly-dilly or now willy-nilly or maybe fuddle-duddle. I gotta love that. It's funny. I have it on underneath.
I'm not wearing my dilly-dilly tonight.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
dilly dilly.
Is it still
So,
dilly or maybe
yep.
willy nilly or maybe
Willy nilly
fuddle-nuddle?
or fuddle duddle. Ah, Dennis, that's a good one. So he had some good ones like last week
Tell me about it.
after the show was
After
over.
the show was over, they were still coming
He was
on,
still rolling on,
popping into the live
so
chat.
it was great. Whoo, so let's talk. Let's see what it is. Where do you want to start? I know you've got the jersey on. Is that where we want to start?
Oh, that's kind of why I wore it.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, for the longest time, I've been the biggest Ben Roethlisberger supporter. I feel Ben Roethlisberger is a fantastic quarterback. But I saw a few things in the game on Sunday that I did not particularly like seeing from Ben Roethlisberger as quarterback that have me concerned moving forward. I've really come to the realization of a couple things. One, there are throws that Ben Roethlisberger right now is either not, I'm not sure what's the answer to this, that he is either not able to make or unwilling to try to make.
Okay.
I don't know if that's, and I'm not even sure the reasons why. Is it, Father Time's caught up to him? Is it he can't do anymore because of the elbow? Is it just he's gotten in his own head? Actually, who brought it up on the Slack channel today? I loved it. Has something happened in practices where Ben is throwing against a certain wonderful safety who now has him afraid of throwing at safeties?
Yeah, I don't know if that was brought up on the cutting room floor this week because with Jeffrey Benedick's podcast, because I still need to, I'll probably try to listen to that tonight as I'm falling asleep, which it's so intriguing. I don't actually get to fall asleep, but it helps me wind down sometimes. So I haven't got to catch that yet. I don't know if that was something addressed or not, but that was something Jeffrey brought up. He's like, there's where Ben used to throw to his receivers, rather than to the sidelines as they were on the outside coming back in towards the safeties, and that throw was open, but Ben won't make that throw.
Right.
Is it because he hasn't been able to make that throw in practice because he's going up against Minkah Fitzpatrick? I thought it was an interesting question. I'm not saying that's
a valid
the
question. I don't know if that's an answer or not, but it is a question.
Yeah, that's still.
And then the other thing that I'll go ahead and bring up, and if people did not get the chance to go on to Behind the Steel Curtain, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, and see the article that was done by Kevin.
Yes, KT Smith. Cliff Harris is still a punk. Chysap.
Yep.
All of the above.
He had put in that he was going to, in our Slack channel, that he was going to do a breakdown of the fourth down play.
Fourth and 10.
No,
it wasn't fourth and goal. It was fourth and 10 at the 11-yard line. Yep.
And that wasn't that long after the game. I think it was about time you guys were wrapping up post game or something. And I just chimed, or maybe it was yesterday morning, but I chimed in and was like, well, that play was easy. Ben read blitz, but the Bengals did what I expected them to do, was drop out of it and not actually bring the house. And Ben didn't read that they dropped out of it, received the football, and got it out of his hands as quickly as possible to his hot read, which was Najee.
Yeah.
And to me, it was a poor read, and a poor decision.
Yes, it was. It's funny because they're like, well, Ben did because look, Kevin broke it down. They ran four vertical routes into the end zone. Najee, bottom line is, Najee was put out there on the side to make them account for him, to draw a defender away from one of the other guys that was far enough to catch the pass for a first down / touchdown, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So if Najee would have stayed in the block, then chances are there would have been an extra defender defending those guys back there. Najee flares out there then you've got to have at least one, if not two guys out there ready for that, which then makes it to where they're not covering the other guys.
Right.
But if those guys are blitzing and there's going to be nobody out there, then you've got to hope that
you flip it out to Najee, hope your receivers make a block and he finds the end zone.
Yeah, and that those corners and safeties that we're covering in the passing game. I mean, because they can't run them through the tunnel. It's not like you can run those guys that far off that they can't come back to the 1 yard line. But to me, a lot of what people are criticizing Ben Roethlisberger, who rightfully deserves the criticism. Love Ben Roethlisberger, always have. Steelers quarterback. I liked him. I wanted them to draft him so bad when he was coming out of Miami. All of that doesn't matter. You still have to give an honest critique.
Correct.
And did not play well, did not make good decisions. Oh my goodness, the second interception.
Oh, you couldn't ask for any. You're 4 yards away, and the guy's got three guys around him. How do you not see it?
Not only he's got two guys on him and a guy in between you and him.
Yeah.
And the thing is, was it Wilson? Was that the name of the player that got the both interceptions? Yeah, I think so. I can't remember. If that was his name, he took an interception away from the safety because the safety was going to intercept that ball.
Right.
Because he had already undercut the route with Juju, but the ball never even made it that far. That's how that wasn't the thing. Now, some people were saying this, and I can see it. Ben didn't have his go-to quick dump-off safety guy who gets the separation right away in Deontay Johnson. Now, with Deontay Johnson not playing, you would assume that James Washington was going to get those snaps and those targets. Now, James Washington definitely got the snaps. He went from 15 snaps in week 1 to 12 snaps in week 2 to 66 in week 3. More snaps than the Steelers had plays in the other one. That was 80% of the snaps because the Steelers ran so many of them. But when it came to targets, he had 2 the first game, 1 the second game. James Washington had 5 targets in this game. Out of 56 passes, James Washington got 5 targets. Based on how many more passes Ben Roethlisberger threw, he didn't target him really any significant amount more than he would have otherwise. Who got the targets? We know who got the targets. Who became the safety net?
It was Najee.
It was Najee. You know what? And I'm actually okay with that. I'm actually all right with that. We have a Vertex coming out tomorrow with Jeffrey Benedict and myself. We were talking about Najee Harris being more than just a rusher. We're talking about him in the passing game, and we look at, hey, how about as a blocker? And honestly, the answer to that is it's not good. We saw the first interception was kind of on Najee because he completely whiffed and let Ben's arm get hit. He went to block that. He didn't even touch him. You'll see it. You got to check it out. So Najee became the safety net. So that's kind of where it came throughout the game. But ultimately, the point that I started with before I got off on all that with the receivers is Ben doesn't trust the line. If you look at everything out there, Ben doesn't trust the line, which is surprising because you thought maybe he was, as much as he was holding on to the ball with some of those sacks that he took. I mean, my goodness, I'm at Jeff's house watching the game because I didn't get it. And we're just screaming. We're like, throw the ball. I don't care if you throw it out of bounds. Don't take the sack after that long.
Well,
but
I have a theory there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ben was suffering Sam Darnold syndrome the other day. He was seeing ghosts.
Yeah. He was seeing stuff that wasn't there. But I mean, look, he got hit so much the week before. And people might not want to hear this. When it came to pass blocking, the offensive line did better this week. Now, could it be that it's because they weren't going up against the Max Crosby's, Carl Nassib's, there's someone else on the D line that I'm forgetting. Oh, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does it mean maybe that's why they played a little bit better on the offensive line when it came to pass blocking? Perhaps. But Ben Roethlisberger getting hit, he was getting more time to throw. He really was. I
But
seeing
were
Ghost.
you noticing him missing some open guys here and there too?
He won't throw to open guys in the middle of the field. He won't throw the ball in the middle of the field.
Period. I know.
He won't. Yeah, I
saw
you might have
one
seen
time.
the graphics.
I saw
one next
one
gen
time.
stats through 3 weeks. He hasn't thrown anywhere in that box, like in the middle of the field beyond 15 yards.
I saw one play where James Washington is open in the middle of the field and just giving this, and Ben doesn't throw the ball, and it was almost like the Bengals just let him be open because they knew Ben wasn't going to throw the ball there. And just Ben doesn't throw the ball there, and I just saw a deflated James Washington.
Yeah, it's like you're sending me into the middle of the field, but it's like I'm only here to stand here because Ben won't throw the ball here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Just
the question now is
the question is, can that change from Ben?
Yeah. Is that something that can be fixed?
Can that be fixed? I'm not sure it can. It could.
I'm not sure it can't. I'm not
sure it can't.
I'm not saying that
sure
it can't. I'm just not sure that it will.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to say it? It's not that it can't be, but will it? Is Ben Roethlisberger at a point in his career that he can't move as well? He can't take the hit. So these habits that, I'll be honest with you, I think some of these are habits he picked up last year living in Randy Land. Does he have too many Randy Land habits that he can't break? Honestly, don't do this. I mean, I think back. I mean, I'm sorry that I'm still blaming the guy that's not even here anymore. But I'm looking back at 2019, and the biggest thing that frustrated me when Ben was out, Roethlisberger, Mason Rudolph was playing. And he'd meet with the media, and he's like, well, Coach Randy says, I got to be thinking about this. I got to be thinking about that. I got to think about this. I can't turn the ball over. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, stop putting so much in this guy's head that he can't play football. I'm like, it's like Randy Land overwhelmed. Oh, well, don't do this. You don't want to do this. It'll screw it up. You don't want to do this. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, will Ben not attack the middle of the field because it was something that was ingrained in his brain last year? I don't know. Hey, we got $2 here. You want to answer this question? Takaharu. Will Tomlin ever bench Ben?
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. That's my answer. I doubt it. And you know what? Some people, okay. Anything else you would say about it? Because I'm about ready to go up because you mentioned Tomlin. And
will Tomlin ever bench Ben? Right now, I really doubt it. Does that mean we won't see another quarterback at some point this year? Nope.
No.
Because honestly, Ben keeps taking shots. I expect Ben to have to miss some time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And you know what? There's so much, I understand this should be a big area of concern. I'm probably going to I was going to say this for Stat Geek, and I'll probably still talk about it there too. But here's some numbers to talk about. Okay. The Steelers play 3 teams this year that had 13 or more wins last year. One of which was the Buffalo Bills. The other one, they had 13 wins. One of the other 2 is the Green Bay Packers, who they face this week. And the other one is the Kansas City Chiefs, who had 14 that they face at the end of the year. The Chiefs have already matched their number of losses as what they had last year right now. So we'll see. But everyone talks about the Steelers having the most difficult schedule based on 2020 records. What team that the Steelers played last year or played this year had the worst record last year? It was the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah,
they had 4 wins and a tie. Everybody else had at least 5 wins last year that they're playing this year. So the Steelers have already beat one of the teams that had the best records from last year that they play, and they've already lost the team that has one of the worst records that they played last year. And that's what's going on. Everyone's up in arms about everything. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. People want to talk about changing quarterback. They want to talk about the coach. We are going to get on to the Green Bay Packers, but we still have a lot we need to talk about. I think it's time to roll into the second half. So I'm going to have a message for people that are screaming to bench Ben and are screaming to fire Tomlin and are screaming to Kevin Colbert. Got a message coming up here in the second half. So if you're on the audio side, make sure you go ahead and flip on over to part 2. If you're here with us on Yahoo or Facebook Live, YouTube or Facebook Live, stick around. We'll be back in a few seconds. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we are back with part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield. With me, as always, my big brother Rich. How's it going, Rich?
Welcome to the Bro Show.
All right, we're going to get right into it because sorry, Brent Green. I guess you'll be the victim of my wrath. Okay, $5 into the tip jar. We do thank you for that. He says, "All right, bench Ben. We need to see what we have in Haskins." No, we don't. Otherwise, why not just tank for the year with Ben and get a QB in the draft? It's about time. Okay. A lot of people are saying, here's the problem. They're like, oh, the Steelers are going to be bad this year. This is like the worst quarterback draft there is. This is the year you don't want to be bad. I don't know about all that. I'm not getting into that. Okay. 1, the Steelers don't do that. 2, bench Ben. Ben Roethlisberger had worse performances than this in 2004, but they still managed to win. He had worse performances with this earlier in his career. They still managed to win. I'm not saying that because that was Ben on the rise. We don't have Ben on the rise anymore. But you know what? We also don't have anybody that the Steelers felt was any better than Ben Roethlisberger going into this year. The Steelers know what they have. And to find what they have at Haskins, here's what I'm going to say about Haskins. What was the problem in Washington? They played him too soon. He wasn't supposed to play the first year. They brought him in because they wanted to know what they had, and they admitted he wasn't ready. Okay. Do you want to make the same mistake? You're like, oh, but now he's in his 3rd year. Yeah, maybe he understands the NFL a little bit more, but does he really understand what the Steelers want from him that much right now? Do you want... If that same mistake happens to him again, he is done. So I'm not saying that if worst comes to worst, that all of a sudden you have to call on Dwayne Haskins, that's not the answer. What I'm saying is that really the best thing for him to put him in a situation like that? I could be completely wrong. I'm just wanting people to think about it. So that's 1. 2, is that a move that the Steelers really do? Do you really see them benching Ben Roethlisberger right now? No, it's 3 games into the season. They knew this was going to be ride or die with Ben Roethlisberger. They're not going to call it 3 games in. Agreed?
Correct.
Even if it's not good, they're not going to do that. Now, when it comes later in the season, and if it's more of the same, then that's a discussion there. But think about this. When we have been having this discussion 2 weeks ago, how much has changed in those 2 weeks? How much can change in the next 2 weeks? It's too many variables to say, oh, well, that, the Steelers should move on for Ben after the bye. You know what? If they're not moving on from him this week, then you got to assess what happens after this week. Okay. That's 1. 2, a lot of people are like, they just need to move on from Tom. They are not firing a coach during the season, especially 3 games in.
Look, they're not firing Mike Tomlin right now, period.
Yeah.
Okay? Because let me tell everybody one thing out there. If the Steelers were to fire Mike Tomlin, or there was word that he was really on the hot seat and could go, there would be 15 teams in the NFL licking their chops, just waiting to talk to him once it happened.
Yeah. And some people are like, well, sometimes this was something I brought up today, to one Jefferson Hartman. I'm like new isn't always better. Okay. If you ever watch how I Met Your Mother, when Barney tried to say what's my number one rule, and then they list off like 18 of them, and he's like, new is always better. They're like, oh really? This new Scotch that they just made is going to be better than the 30-year-old Scotch? And he tried to say that it was, but it wasn't. New isn't always better, and change just for the sake of change doesn't always give you better results. Okay, some people are like, well, just change it. Okay. It's not at that point yet. The Steelers need to go from here, but it's not we need to burn it all down. First thing you have to do is try to fix it. If they keep doing this and you can't get it fixed, then you have to move to those. There is a progression here. It's all of a sudden, they lost to the Bengals, burn it all down. That's why we're not in the NFL. That's why those people aren't employed by the NFL to make decisions. Because guess what? That's why coaches get fired mid-season when they do stuff like that. You can't react on emotion. We get to do that as fans. That's our job. But to expect it and be like, I'm done with this team until they bench Ben and fire Tomlin. You know what? See you in 10 years. Because I don't know that either one of those things are ever going to happen. So it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Okay. And like I said,
okay. Here you go. Hold on.
Yep.
Dennis says, but Dave, we're 2-6 the last 8 games. That is true. And I even brought up about the scoring in the first quarter for 11 games. But you know what? This is this is not the same team from last year. There's a lot of the same pieces, but there's also a lot of younger pieces. You can't start 5 draft picks and expect it to be a seamless transition and not give everything a chance to come together. They need more time to come together. So go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry. I've been going on a rant. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do I get to talk now?
Yes.
Okay. People that are out there in podcast form that were listening on, if you listen to part 1, you heard, I had some things I'm really concerned about Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. But it's not time that I'm screaming you have to put him on the bench. What I'm saying is I'm having these
problems.
Fix the problems. If we can't fix the problems, then you have, he gets the chance to fix the problems. If we can't fix the problems and the problems continue, then you have to consider putting him on the bench. Right?
Yes.
It can't, it's not a snap reaction. It's a, wow, that really wasn't good. Here's what I saw that I felt things that were somewhat small before were magnified even more in the last game. Okay. All right, great. If he comes out this week and, slings the ball all over the field and throws 3 touchdowns and 320 yards and the Steelers win, Ben's the best,
Yes.
But I don't know if he can do that. But he's going to get the shot to do that.
2017, not even the postseason, regular season against the Jaguars. A lot of the same things were being said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that should have been the time, or maybe things were fine. You have to remember, it's still 3 games into the season. It's still 2 games since the upset win of Buffalo. And I saw someone say in their live chat a long time ago, I'm not really following the live chat that much. I'm catching it here and there when I'm not looking up other things, that they said, well, they're like that. The win in Buffalo was more of a freak thing. Well, didn't we get absolutely roasted because we didn't see that the Steelers were going to be good and we didn't pick them, and we were fair weather fans because we didn't pick them to win? And now it's, that was just a freak thing. We were supposed to predict the freak thing, right? So you can't have it all the way around.
It's like we were talking
the
before.
narrative changes constantly.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
So, Tomlin's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Ben's going to still be your starter for at least for now. You get the opportunity to fix things. Those things aren't changing drastically. The question is from the show is what can be fixed.
Yeah.
You know, what can be fixed on the defensive side of the football? Well, the
about
first
health?
thing I was going to say, that would be the first thing that you think of on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
Health. Okay. If we can fix health for some of our key guys, that fixes, you fix that part. What kind of difference is that going to make?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But this was something I said to you before the show, and I said I should have saved that for the show, and then I didn't say it when it came up. And that was like, people that are screaming, Tomlin needs to go right now. You know what you're doing? You're wasting your breath and you're wasting your characters, because it's not going to happen. You can say it all you want, but it's just not going to happen. Okay. So the thing is, and if you're saying nothing can be fixed, you know what? Turn off the TV. Don't watch. Because if you've given up on them,
if you're saying
then just give up. Be
Yep.
done. Be done. Be done. If you don't, I'm like, because here's my question going into this week. I predict that the Steelers are going to play better this week than they did last week. I don't know if it's going to be enough to win in Lambeau, but I think they'll play better than last week. If they play worse, then you really have even more questions to ask, because when you see what you saw last Sunday, if that's not rock bottom and there's a lower rock bottom, then your issues are even deeper.
Yep.
So you have hit the point. I mean, Tomlin knew it after the game that you have to go up from here. I still reference back to my last year coaching, and you all probably don't ever want to hear about it, but I remember my first game of the season when I had 1 week less practice with my kids because the varsity coach wouldn't let me bring in the freshman team because he didn't want them to be a distraction to the varsity. And therefore we had like 4 practices and went to play our first game. And I probably felt this was what Coach Tomlin was referencing when he said we ran out of bullets on that 4th and 10. It was one of those things where I looked at my play sheet. I turned to my assistant coach, who is now the head varsity coach at the school that I taught at, and said, I don't have a single play on the sheet that I feel that we can actually execute. That's what happened in that 4th and 10. They felt like they didn't have anything left, nothing was going right for them. But you know what happened with me after that game? We revamped everything. Everything we did there was moving forward and getting better. And that's what we did. And we played the same team at the end of the season. We beat them. So after getting crushed by a ton that first game, we had nothing. So when you hit that moment, everything has to be about getting the steps to be better. So if I don't see a better product in Green Bay, I'm not saying they have to win. If I don't see a better product in Green Bay, then this team has some serious problems all around. So I'm trying to remember. You want to say anything about that?
No, it's really spot on, especially like you're saying. If we're not seeing, it's got a week, 2 weeks. If we're not seeing movement forward, or heaven forbid things can look even worse, then there are some serious issues, and then you got to start at least to consider. You'd have to imagine Kevin Colbert and folks up in the front office that got to start or would have to start thinking, wow, when we get to the off season, we're really going to have to make some changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are going to be some options for us?
Yes. And honestly, here's the other problem that Steelers fans have is that we have short memories. Last year it was 11-0 and fall off the cliff. This year it's starting, it was 1-0 and then you fall off the cliff. But the question is, can you right the ship? Yep. Last year there was no, and people thought just playing a good second half against the Colts righted the ship. I thought it got it back on, started heading in the right direction. I didn't feel it was righted enough like some people did.
I thought the best thing what we should have been doing was be playing all our regulars the last week, but to continue to right the ship.
Yeah. So the thing is, You know how elated we were with 11-0 last year, and then how miserable it was when they started losing a bunch of games. Okay, remember. And then once again, I said, hey, that was last year when I said that to how many they've lost in a row, which is true. And that was last year. There might be no comparisons here. Coach Tom's always said, I don't try to draw on things from previous years. But I'm just saying, what if the trend changes? The Steelers have showed us that they could basically beat anybody on their schedule because they did.
Yeah.
They beat the Buffalo Bills. It's there. It's just everything had to go right, and they've really had to come through with some key things. That has not happened the last 2 weeks, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen again. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why when you talk about the offensive line, I still say because they're so young and haven't played together, that's something that you want to see improving all the time. Coach Tomlin's last question he was asked in his press conference today was, hey, what are things that you expected to see from the line improved short term? And what are things that you think is going to be more of a long-term improvement? I thought it was a fantastic question. I couldn't tell who asked it. It might've been Cavalli. Fantastic question. And I like Tomlin's answer. He said the things that they can improve on right now, right away, is gaining knowledge of stuff. I can't do this. I have to make sure, this penalty, things like that. What's more long-term is the cohesion of working together as a unit is not something that you could say, all right, you all have to work together now, and expect it to be, you could say, all right, you can't get your hands on the outside of the defender when blah, 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 and this thing, and you get a penalty call. That's something you can learn right now. But you can't say, all right, you guys got to get better together. You have to know what the other guy's thinking. That's something that will happen when it happens. So you can see that's one of those things that you hope to continue to get better. What everyone's afraid of is with your 39-year-old quarterback, you don't expect things to get better, do you? But Ben Roethlisberger's always been a guy that got better as the season went on. Last year's what we saw where he got better, and then it started to not with everything going on. I don't know what to expect. You could see either way. Okay. So what else do we want to say here, Rich? There's just.
Oh, let me go ahead and bring this up. Why not?
Okay.
Wonder if my parents will be listening at all at any point in time to this. Sometimes, believe it or not, they go back and at least our mother does sometimes goes and
hi, Mom.
Later. But when I stopped by Mom and Dad's house this evening, of course, Dad wanted to talk the game, and we're talking the game. And we've hit on it a little bit here, and I'll bring it up some more. Dad hit on his thoughts on Matt Canada and Matt Canada's offense. Mm-hmm. And there's no creativity to it, and it's this and that and everything else. There have been a few things I have seen here and there in just in a few plays from the Steelers this year. We have had a few plays that have looked really creative and really neat.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have had, all the way through as they've been run. And I've seen some other plays where I've thought, oh, that's kind of creative. Why didn't Ben throw the ball over there?
Yeah.
And
I've said that a lot.
The more I've started to look at things, it's like folks that are on the get rid of Canada bandwagon. I think we're way too early for that. Yeah. I don't think that's time.
3 games?
I don't think that's time at all. I've noticed a couple of folks in the live chat tonight talking about, Canada's kind of handcuffed to his quarterback right now. And, for better or worse, that's kind of what that is right now. So that I think we got to give some time. I'd say, was I thrilled with what I saw out of our defense last game? No, not really. We did not get a whole lot of pressure in the 18 times that Joe Burrow dropped back to pass. But, we were facing a lot of injuries and had a lot of guys out there that hadn't spent a lot of time out there on the field. I could see where Keith Butler had issues game planning and trying to, going from suddenly, just game one, rushing four, basically the whole time and no blitzing. You can't take a whole bunch of new guys to it and suddenly have all these different blitzes in there, especially when you're playing an outside linebacker that you just brought up off the practice squad.
Yeah.
It just that just wasn't going to happen. So really, I don't want to say I'm thrilled on the coaching aspect of things because.
And you heard my rant on the post game about the timeout. We're not going to go there.
No, don't go there either.
I said my piece there.
Yep. Well, it was funny because I was saying the same thing to Kyle during the game.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm not saying that I'm giving the coaches a pass because it's not a pass.
No.
But it's similar to what we were saying with Ben in terms of I've got to give them some time to fix it.
Yeah.
You don't have issues one week, and as a coordinator or a coach, snap your fingers and those issues are gone. As you were saying earlier, some of those issues can be gone. We can talk, I'm hoping, Clem's doing some work with some of those guys to get those holding calls cleaned up because it cost poor Najee so many yards this week.
Yes, it did.
That stuff I want to see cleaned up. But the coaching staff still has to work on getting their guys together and I'm going to say working as a unit, everybody on the same page, the same vision, the same, that doesn't happen overnight.
Yes. Yeah.
So just, I don't want to say I don't understand where everybody's coming from yelling for coaches' heads because I get it because you're seeing what you see. But that's not coming. I think it's a little unrealistic to think it's coming.
I'm going to give you an analogy. I'm not trying to give you a big social commentary here, but it really, this is a family show and I'm going to bring it up. You and I are both parents. I don't know how many of you out there, watching now or listening are parents, but if you are parents, you understand that once you're a parent, you're always a parent. It's kind of how it goes. Sometimes when your kids screw up, the best thing you can do for them is to not fix it. But we, as a parent, our tendency is that we want to just fix it. When the kid makes a mess, it's easier for me to clean it up, blah, 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 blah. A lot of times I have to say this to my wife, the kids make a mess with all their toys. Well, they are not going to put them away in the right spot. So I better put them away so they're where they should go. You know what you've done? You're not teaching them that they have to deal with the consequences to the own things that they have. That sometimes you need to have the opportunity to fix your mistakes. And our children need it. And if we don't give it to it, then I hate to see where our society is going. Maybe that's part of our problem of where we are right now. Let's not go into that. The same thing needs to happen right now with the Steelers, with the players and the coaches. They need to fix their mistakes.
Yep.
They need to be given a chance to fix their mistakes or they'll never learn. So we got to have them fix their mistakes. Here you go. Super chat. $1.99 of the tip jar. Thank you, Brandon Keene. He said, going on the optimistic side, win 2 of 3. You got 2 at home before the bye, and you're 3-3. That's true.
That's true.
That's true. If the Steelers go in and pull off the upset at Lambeau, we've got a whole different narrative coming.
Sure.
But that's a really tall task to ask. Just like I thought it was a really tall task to go in and beat Buffalo in Buffalo. The Steelers play 3 teams that had 13 or more wins last year, and all 3 of them are on the road. Those are tough games. And the thing is, if the Steelers, I don't need the Steelers to win Sunday to feel better about the direction they're going. They just need to come out and fight and show some things that they can do to give themselves, and of course, then obviously the fan base, some confidence moving forward. If you've already said it's done and they can't fix anything, I'm going to say it again. Then don't watch and don't complain and don't cheer when they win, because they can fix it. I just don't know if they will.
Right. What I want to see is this. Okay, as a fan, what I want to see, or I want to go into a game feeling that my team could win every week.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, whether or not they win or not, I mean, I mean, how many, 9 and 7 teams have we seen as Steeler fans where you still had a team that you felt could win every week, but they end up 9 and 7, 8 and 8. Okay. That's all I'm looking for. Okay. The product I saw on Sunday is not that product.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. We're only as confident as last week's game.
Yes.
End of story. That's how the NFL works. This is why the Steelers are, and especially the whole fan base freaking out the way they are, is because of it's all we have is last week's game, which built on the one before. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So what's you're going back 1, maybe dipping 2, but how many of the fans have forgotten about week 1 already? So now you're going to be looking at week 4 and dipping back into week 3 a little bit. You're exactly right. We've had so much talk about. We didn't talk about Green Bay that much coming up, but we did because we're talking.
We did. We're talking about what's moving forward.
It's not even about their opponent. It's really not. Honestly,
no.
I'm happy to see the Steelers go on the road again. There have been times where the team is better on the road, that they can come together and everything more on the road. You're going to hear me talk with Stat Geek as with both of these two teams coming up. What's the key to their wins and losses? Turnovers.
Yep.
Both the Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers, they are undefeated when they haven't turned the ball over, and they haven't won a game when they have. End of story. Both teams. So who's going to do what with that? So that's some things going forward. Not a lot of confidence in this team. We're going to do our picks still. Anything else you want to say before your pick?
No.
Okay. We're going to do our picks still. I'm going to remind you of the rules. The rules are don't put your score out there before I actually put the word score in the live chat. I will not bring it up. Okay, that's the rules. Sometimes you just have to make rules to make it easier to work. Jeff Hartman had to make the same rule for his Let's Ride that people were just firing him questions. He's like, I'm not going to answer those on the mailbag segment. You've got to respond to the tweet that I put out. That's where I go and get the questions. That's kind of like our rules here. Okay, so that's the rule. Also, another rule, and what do you know? As soon as I say it, someone puts a score up there. I will not put your score up, even if you put it up later, no matter what. End of story. So don't even try. That's 1. 2, if you want to put up a troll score, I'm not even going to waste my time. Okay? Go with what you honestly think. If you're going to say 725-2, don't even bother, because that's acting on emotion. Let's think about what we're actually doing.
Are we talking with the regular Dicka or the miniature Dicka?
Yeah. Before we do it, one thing I do have to say, if you haven't checked it out, it's on Twitter. If you like Pittsburgh Dad, I have not watched his episode from this past week yet because it's been crazy.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I did watch on the Pat McAfee show. Aaron Rodgers asked about the city of Pittsburgh, talks about knowing how to speak Pittsburgh, and his favorite Twitter follow, Pittsburgh Dad.
Nice.
Aaron Rodgers gives a shout out to Pittsburgh Dad, which I thought was pretty interesting. You can go back and check that out. Pittsburgh Dad shared it. It's on the Pat McAfee show. It's funny because Aaron Rodgers said he had to learn how to understand Pittsburghese because of having Mike McCarthy speaking into his headset for all those years. So
that's funny.
I thought that was funny. So now we're going to go scores.
Yep.
Okay. Rich, give me your score.
All right. I'm just going to go based on what I'm feeling. Okay. I expect to see improvement from the Steelers offensively. I expect things to click a little better. but I expect it to be in baby steps.
Yeah.
I expect that we still have at least one turnover. In the end, I feel like that Green Bay just a little too much offensive firepower. Our offense makes improvements, but not enough to get it done. Green Bay Packers 33, Pittsburgh Steelers 21.
33-21. There you go. I've now put it out there for the scores because I don't let people do it until you actually officially say yours. 33-21. So there we go. Go, Kathy. She was ready. You knew she was
ready. Oh, yeah. She was just waiting to hit
24-17 Green Bay. Okay. Brad says, I'm not going to read everything. 27-21 Green Bay. Wow, I missed one. They're flying.
Yeah.
George, 27-13 Green Bay. Hopes he's wrong. I feel you there. Okay. Nate got trades 30-17 Green Bay. Awesome stuff has 35-17 Green Bay. Sundar 5 or Sundar V. Which one is it?
It doesn't matter.
Roman numeral or initial. I don't know. Green Bay 27, Steelers 20. Brian Brown says 23-21 Steelers. Field goal as time expires. You know what?
From 67 yards.
From 67 yards. Okay. Stacy Lynn says 24-10 Steelers. Okay. Mark Tobin says 35-17 Packers. Steelers Freak says 31-13 Green Bay. Deplorable BR says 31-13 Green Bay. That was the same scores before. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bully Mob Kennel says 42-17 Green Bay. Todd Fagerty, did I say that right? Maybe. Green Bay 34, Steelers 14. I'm skipping the next one because they were in too early. Javier Mori said 34-13 Green Bay. Alan Goddard says 31-17 Green Bay. C. Brown says 35-12 Green Bay. Steelers Chick 46 says 21 or Steelers 21, Green Bay 20. That'd be a nice one. Yins up 31-28 Steelers. Boz wins it. Okay. Leaping Cat Productions 37-3 Green Bay. See, now that's one that then we're going to come back next week and say, now we're getting a little bit closer to having to answer some of these hard questions that you're getting a quarter of the way through the season. Remember, we're not even a quarter of the way through the season yet. Okay. John Luff 19-17 Steelers. Devin Logan says 28-16 Green Bay. Hope he's wrong as well. Jeff Lauderdale says a bunch of stuff, says loses a close one, 17-20. David Poe says Green Bay 31, Pittsburgh 20. He's worried about more injuries.
Oh, so am I.
Brandon Keene says, I know. I mean, that's the thing. You know, injuries are what it is. You just hopefully players can come back and everything else we'll see as the week goes. Brandon Keene says 24-21 Pitt. Remember, a lot of people did predict that the Steelers would not beat the Bengals if TJ Watt didn't play. Yep. Then TJ Watt didn't play and the Steelers lost to the Bengals.
Correct.
Remember, that's how we did it. But the problem was they just didn't like the offense. So the offense didn't put up numbers. They just didn't put points on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark Lake says 27-24 Steelers in an upset. I like that he added, don't ask me how. Okay. Pink Goat Gaming. Is that right? Yeah. 31-27 Steelers. Brian Williams says 38-35 Steelers. Was that the score the last time they played? I'm pretty sure that might've been, it was something crazy like that with the field goal. Jerry Cherry Band says 31-25 Steelers. George OTJ says 27-26. That's Steelers if you didn't put a team in there. Okay. Richard Adamson says 34-24 Green Bay. Okay. Kelvin Colbert Sr. says 23-21 Rudolph game-winning touchdown. If that's the case, I'm fearing that's due to injury because I don't see them doing it any other way. Even if it's a minor one, if you know what I mean. Joe Blow says 28-17 Pittsburgh. Buck Dancer 34-7 Green Bay. Okay. Comments on other people's stuff. I like it. Okay. Adrian Williams says Steelers 42, Green Bay 28. If this offense could put up 42 points, I mean, they haven't put up.
They would have they will have totally turned it around.
I mean, you do realize that the offense is responsible for exactly 42 points so far this season. Because if you take away the special teams touchdown, in 3 games, so that would be a very welcome sight. 23-20 Steelers from Terry Glover. Tyler W. We didn't get his yet. Nope. 27-21. Coming Green Bay says coming up just short on the final drive, saying you got, that brings back memories of the last Super Bowl. Having the ball with a chance to win late in the game. Lots of people saying other things. Oh, we both hit the same at the same time. Green Bay 34, Steelers 13. And I'm still looking. Some people say it's the TJ Watt factor. I would love for that to be it. Okay. Tom Vallejo, 41-10 Packers. Yeah, that would be disheartening, but it's not out of the realms of possibility. Richard Adamson says, if they find themselves, maybe 20-18 Pittsburgh. Okay. I still think the key is keeping it to a low scoring game. Illegal Italian says 24-17 Cheeseheads. Okay. Donald Clark says 27-26 or 27 Steelers 27, Packers 26. I almost read that wrong. Okay. Evan Giles says 27-21 Steelers. I like that there's still people out there that saying the Steelers can pull it off, except he changed it to 28-21. Okay. Josh Parker says 2017 Green Bay. Okay. That is what we got. So here's the thing,
sorry, little bro, I got to give you credit where credit is due.
What'd I do?
Oh, wait, click the wrong one. There you go. It skipped on me.
Oh, I said it right. I don't remember how I said it. I think it was Vallejo, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Woohoo. Tom Vallejo.
Part of the reason I love when you do the scores is listening to you fumble through the last
I love fumbling the names. It's great. It's great. I mean, the problem is
you're like Pittsburgh dad, honestly. Yeah, that old Channer Tating guy or whatever.
Chanham Tater. Okay. He's not good. I'm sorry. That was when he was reviewing. I loved it when he did those ones when he would review movies. That was G.I. Joe too. He's like, she was already in the car before I finished saying his name. Sorry, that was a good one. The sky appears to be falling, but it's only falling as far as the next week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you play to win the game.
You play to win the game.
But which is ultimately what they're going out there to do on Sunday. But the Steelers can somewhat get that ship back on course in a loss. You just don't want to see that happen. You don't want to have moral victories. You don't. But if you're talking that it's a long season, then what they do in this game, not the score, but how they play in the game is going to tell you an awful lot about how this team responds to a game that Coach Tomlin just said. That's how bad of a game it was for us. It was just a bad game. So you guys see it. Rich, anything else you would like to say before we call it a show?
No. I'll say this. Am I worried? Yes.
Yeah.
Am I hoping I see a different Steeler team than I saw last week? Yes. If I see a different team than I saw last week for the better, then I start to say, okay, there is hope. That's what I want coming out of this game. I want to feel a reason for optimism. I want to be able to go back to feeling that my team can go in on any Sunday and win any game.
Yep. And can they go into Lambeau and beat the Packers? This is the NFL. This is why Survivor football, like our contest, where we have 59% of the people still around, this is why it's so difficult to do, because anybody can beat anybody in any game. They really can. So that's what we're going for. I said this on the post-game show, and it's kind of what I'm going to say to go here. What we need to do with this Pittsburgh Steelers team right now is week to week. You've got to go, what can we get going? and get fixed and get on the right track for Green Bay. We don't need to talk about, oh, they're going to end up, can they get to 11-6 or they're going to be an 8-9 team. You know what they need to do? They need to get better for week 4. And then after week 4, you need to look ahead at what needs to be done for week 5. And that, based on the last couple weeks, this is the way that we're going to have to be viewing these Steelers for a little bit now, is that week to week, you just got to say, can they just pull it off this week? And then the question is, can they do it again the following week? So, Rich, it's been a lot of fun kind of airing our grievances, talking it out there. You know, Jeff said it great on his Let's Ride. There's people that are on one extreme and there's people that are on the other. And where do things really lie? Somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between. But you know what? We'll be back next Tuesday. We're still going to have all the stuff at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com that we always bring. We're still going to have our whole lineup of podcasts coming at you, just like we have for the last 3 weeks. The world is not over. We will continue to be here. We will keep coming. If you don't want to watch anymore because you've given up, I'm sorry. But you know what? We're still going to be here for those of you that want
That's
to.
right.
So,
hey, quick heads up. I'm going to be doing some traveling here later this week. I'm going out of town, actually headed to the Outer Banks. Keep an eye out if you're out and about especially through the Hampton Roads area, and you see a guy with the hashtag Take Kyle shirt, come say something. There's probably something in it for you if you do. So keep an eye out, because if there's 2 things that out there that I love, it's going to the beach and Steeler football. Can't wait.